Today, our topic of discussion is Maratha reservation and future of reservations. Now, as all of you know, we will be joined by our daily guest, and that is Apurva Sahasrabuddhe, and we will also be joined by our today's actual guest, and that is Prasad Pawar. I will be shortly introducing both of them on record. So Apurva will be joining us shortly. Yes. Hello. I'm just
Hello.
waiting for Prasad also. Yes, I have got his
Yeah.
request. Great. So, namaste everyone. Today's topic of this is Maratha reservation and future of reservations. We have two guests here with us. Firstly, Apurva Sahasrabuddhe, who is a sub-editor of NewsDanka, which is a web news portal, both in English. And also we have our guest today, and that is Prasad Pawar. He is an assistant professor at Pune University, Department of Communication and Journalism. So both of them have joined us, and of course, one of the most hot topic which is being discussed everywhere is the fate with which Maratha reservation has met in Supreme Court. So, firstly, I would like to ask for and call upon Prasad to share his initial views, his whatever his opinion is about this particular decision and Maratha reservation overall. Over to you, Prasad.
Apurva and Aditya, both of you, first of all, let me just thank you for having me tonight. It's going to be a very good discussion, and the topic, as you initially said, it's going to be very hot. But actually, more than the controversy and which are things which are associated with it, there is nothing hot. It has to be logical, it has to be sensible, otherwise it's just a game of political muckraking. So that should not happen in this discussion. That's all we will try to do. As far as my initial comments go, I personally would like to mention one thing, that the petitioner who is there, who is fighting against Maratha reservation, I think that person is making very explosive comments, and that actually are going against this particular community, which is considered as more aggressive. So whatever the points which he is raising, I have a huge respect for those points, but then he should not make such controversial comments, so that the controversy will actually take over the actual debate and discourse of this issue. Secondly, coming back to the topic of Maratha reservation, I personally come from that particular community. If I have to define in caste parameters, I come from that community. My father was also a member of Maratha Morcha. He was also being a part of the entire agitation. I can one thing I can tell you on my personal level, that I coming from an urban area of Mumbai and belonging to this particular community, I don't think I require reservation on my personal level. But yes, there are problems in this particular community, but then these problems are common in almost all the communities. Based on these problems, whether this community is eligible for reservation, that is actually a matter of debate and concern. And Honorable Supreme Court in its decision actually gave step-by-step points and very detailed judgment and verdict why this community is not eligible for this reservation, and I personally respect that decision, just to mention at this moment. Secondly, a second point which I would like to mention in my initial comment, and then I would stop, and that point is that I am not fundamentally against this principle of reservation, just to be clear, but at what cost and for how long? Those questions need to be answered, because this movement of Maratha reservation comes from the idea of rebel, okay, that rebel against the existing system, that others are getting benefited. It's not that we are backward, first of all, let me just clear, but then why others are getting benefited? If you just check out the demands of Maratha Morcha in detail, their entire demand was, if you don't give us reservation, then remove the entire reservation. So a community which is backward, that cannot say that remove the entire reservation. Then you can make it out that this demand comes from a very rebel idea of the entire system of rebel reservation. So just to end my initial comment, I would say that I'm not fundamentally against this, but this aspect or this feeling among people that also needs to be addressed, and the entire reservation doctrine needs to have a concrete recheck at this moment.
Obliged. Those were really wise comments, and not at all going into the controversies, but really sticking to the point which is at hand. Now I will also now invite Apurva to share.
Before you do
Yeah,
that, I would like to
yeah.
say that I prefer if you start your point of view first, and then
Sure.
I'll
So
take
now I
it.
will start with the legal point of view, and I will just lay down whatever has the Supreme Court held in its judgment. So there are really two parts to this entire judgment. One part is specifically dealing with Maratha reservation and the act which was passed in 2018, and the second part deals with the constitutional amendment, if I'm not mistaken, 102, which basically constituted National Commission for Backward Classes, and whatever has come out of it, we will be discussing it shortly. Now, as far as the first portion is concerned, and that is the consideration of Maratha Reservation Act of 2018, passed by the then Fadnavis government. Now, coming to the legal intricacies of it, there were three questions. The first question is whether it is allowed to breach uh, the the parameter which was set, or a bar which was set of 50% on reservation. That is the first question, whether that bar or parameter can be breached. That is the first thing. Second thing, and as has been held in Indira Sawhney. The second thing was whether Maratha community is eligible for reservations under the category of socially and educationally backward, and whether they are really backward, and what is the data coming from that. These are really the two fundamental issues, and then I will also deal with whatever comes ancillary to it. Now, as the first question is concerned, and that is whether one can breach the level of the limit of 50%. Now, Supreme Court, in absolutely unequivocal tone, and that decision has been unanimous, and they have held that if you try to breach the parameter of 50% reservation, then what you basically enter into is a caste rule based society, and which is something which none of us really want, because that basically means we are rejuvenating the caste system, which we are really and honestly, with all our efforts, are trying to eradicate. So that is the first thing. Second thing, that is something I'm very surprised that none of the national debate is discussing about. So there is an amendment, constitutional amendment to Article 16(4) of the Constitution, and this was made back in 2000 when Vajpayee government was there, and the amendment basically inserted a clause in our Constitution, Article 16(4)(b). Now this is a new clause. Basically, it says that many times it happens so that there are reserved category seats, but because there are not enough eligible candidates from those reserved category, what happens is those seats remain unfilled, or they just remain vacant. In that note, it was provided that it is better that rather than wasting that seat to no one, it is better that you fill it up, and at the time of filling it up, then there is no further reservation. It becomes an open category seat only for that year. That is one thing. And it is mentioned in the same subclause that while you do so, you have to remember and consider that the limit for constitutional reservation is 50%. So Supreme Court has heavily relied upon this particular, it is 89 constitutional amendment passed in 2000, which says in constitution. So now it is not really a question of only Indira Sawhney judgment or Supreme Court interpreting the entire policy of reservation. Now it becomes constitutional mandate, and also it gets constitutional, as we say, sanctity, that 50% is what Parliament expects that should be the limit for reservation. That is the second point. So as far as that is concerned, Supreme Court is very clear that going beyond 50% requires abundance of exceptional circumstances. That brings me to the second point, whether Maratha community is entitled to it. Now, I am not going to share any of my opinion, because our opinions do not matter, because for a simple reason that we as urban people have very little idea as to what the entire community of Bharat constitutes. So considering that, they basically travel through various things. They fundamentally refer to, so just because one says so, a particular community does not become backward. What Supreme Court has fundamentally relied upon are 4 commissions reports. First is, as we all of know, there is Kalelkar committee. This is the first committee. It was, I think, the year 1954 which was constituted, and they went
Kaka
into this
Saheb,
entire subject. Kaka Saheb Kalelkar. That is
Kaka
one.
Saheb.
Second is the Mandal Commission. It is very famous, constituted in 78, gave a report in 81. Then these are 2 national commissions which determine backwardness of caste. Thirdly was the committee of, if I'm not mistaken, B.D. Deshmukh. This is a state committee appointed by Maharashtra government. That also basically they traverse through whether Maratha community is eligible as a backward community. Fourthly, there was a survey in 2000, which was National Survey of Backwardness. So it was a national committee again, which came up with a report in 2000. Again, they did not find that Maratha community is backward. Finally, there comes a Bapat committee, which was, if I'm not mistaken, constituted by Maharashtra government. They again found that no, the criteria for socially and educationally backward classes is not met by Maratha community. And considering this entire thing, then comes the report of Rane Commission, in which it is for the first time stated on the basis of certain data which they collected at that time that yes, Maratha community is eligible for socially and educationally backward reservation. That is first instance. Then came, because that the act which was passed, an ordinance which was promulgated by the Aghadi government, as we can say, at that time around 2013-14, before they went out of power. That particular ordinance basically lapsed also, and there were some technical and legal errors also. On the basis of that, that entire matter got concluded. Then came Gaikwad Commission, which was constituted by Devendra Fadnavis government, and that basically what it does, and we must congratulate any government, whichever it may be, that it basically broadened the research criteria. Because what is important in considering or analyzing eligibility is whether data is there. Because the moment there is a data, you can come to a conclusion whether that particular community is eligible for backwardness. That particular commission has given out a report, but Supreme Court has noted that according to that particular data, it is still not sufficient, because of course it was the run of the moment, the entire agitation was at its peak, and their demand was also that as expeditiously as possible reservation should come. So because of those limitations, this entire commission gave a report which Supreme Court, at least at the moment, has rejected, saying that we do not basically agree with this report. That is the thing. Now coming to the last question, and which is the most important question. The Gaikwad Commission, in one of its findings, had stated that what Maratha community lacks is basically proportionate representation. Now what happens if a community has 80%, for example, they constitute 80% of the population. Then what Supreme Court says is that 80% population as a community, only even if they are backward, they cannot claim that give us 80% of this, because that will be just another application of caste-based rule, which is not allowed, and that will severely hamper the entire idea of equality. And on that basis, what they say is, and as is the terminology used by Supreme Court, that proportionate representation is not really the criteria. Adequate representation is the criteria. And on the basis of adequate representation, they found that they basically took a very simple test that Class A, Class B, Class C, Class D. These are the 4 levels, categories of government servants. And in all these 4 categories, they found that at least 30% of the Maratha community had some kind of representation in all these areas. So whenever it comes to matter of social representation and their participation in public services, they found that that particular community is sufficiently represented. That is one. As far as educational representation is concerned, they did find that there are a vast chunk of population which is still deprived of education. But what happens is the criteria is socially and educationally backward. Merely because a community is educationally backward, you cannot directly give the reservation. The other criteria has to be fulfilled. And coming to the final conclusion, that overall in Maharashtra, it seems that the Maratha community does not, suffer from the social disadvantage. And by social disadvantages, I mean social discrimination, which is generally meted out to a class which, according to the traditional and ill-rotten system of caste system says that that person should be discriminated against. So at least in Maharashtra, the general perception and overall, what we can say, overall conditions seem to suggest that Maratha community does not have that particular. And on the basis of all these findings, Supreme Court came to the conclusion that this particular breaching of 50% requires that exceptional circumstances need to be met. And as far as this particular Maratha community is concerned, they do not fulfill the criteria of exceptional circumstances. Now I will just shortly conclude my remarks. Then we come to 102 constitutional amendment passed by the central government. Now this is, I must note that this is not the amendment by which 10% open category economically backward reservation was included. This is not the one. This is the second one which came prior to it. Now what it basically did was, it did two things. Firstly, it said that they added Article 342A and they also added, if I'm not mistaken, 338B of the Constitution. They added that and basically stated two things. Firstly, that it is now governments, central governments and president's prerogative to promulgate the list enlisting all the socially and educationally backward classes. Now, why it is so? There is actually a dichotomy, because the argument made from the states was that the moment central government and parliament takes away this power from the state government, it basically infringes upon the federalism, that states should also have power to decide these things. So Supreme Court stated that whenever it comes to scheduled caste and scheduled tribes, it is the central government which publishes a list enlisting all the castes which will be considered as SC or ST. And accordingly, they said that even when it comes to socially and educationally backward classes, the same thing will be applicable. It is the central government, in the name of president, will publish a list, and according to this list, the caste will be nominated and designated whether they belong to socially and educationally backward category. Now, two things. What is the second rung of consideration is, they constituted a commission called as National Commission for Backward Classes, which has the authority to analyze each and every caste, gather the data, and based on the findings, they can recommend it to the president and to parliament, and basically to the president, basically central government, that a particular caste or community should be added as socially and SCBC as they call it. So that is the thing. Now, what is the thing which state government is required to do? State government, in all its wisdom, is required to do one simple thing: constitute a commission in their own state government, government appointed commissions, give them a particular mandate of analyzing and collecting as much data as they can. Because as we know, National Commission for Backward Classes will be getting such requests from all the states, like n number of states, whether it be Gurjars in Rajasthan or Patidar in Gujarat or Jat in Haryana and other states. So basically, National Commission for Backward Classes will be flooded with these kind of applications. So then it becomes necessary that state government basically comes into a role here and they find adequate data, because what happens is anecdotal data will not sufficient, because if you are claiming that Maratha community is more than 50% in Maharashtra, then only on the basis of 2 or 3 lakh people, or even if you consider 30 lakh people, 50 lakh people, that data is not sufficient because it does not cover as many applicants as possible. So, for example, Maharashtra has around population of 12 crore. Now, out of that, if you are saying that 6 crore are belonging to Maratha and the communities, sub-communities of Maratha community, then in that case, you will at least need sizable amount of data pointing to the fact that they are socially and educationally backward. That is the concluding point. So it is correct when it says that central government has the role, president has the last say. But what generally the overall perception is being made, that it is only the responsibility of central government. It is not so. State government, in its wisdom, has all the powers to constitute commissions, make strong recommendation, make strong report, on the basis of which National Commission for Backward Classes will be in a position to designate a community as backward. Now coming to the last and concluding point, and which in my opinion is referring to the second part of our discussion, that is future of reservation. What is it? So the most important thing is Supreme Court has noted. So there was a time when they had just orally stated that what are you thinking besides reservation? And this has newly been noted not only in the judgment, but into the operative part of the judgment. wherein Supreme Court calls upon the legislative bodies and parliament to say that whenever you are considering affirmative action, you cannot stop at reservation. This is basically the laziest idea, because the moment you grant reservation in government, educational institution and government services, these people, the politicians seem to think that now our thing is done. We have done justice to a particular community. Supreme Court has noted that that is not sufficient. Affirmative action is not restricted and limited to reservation. What all the governments seriously required to consider is providing two things. Firstly, educational coaching, educational training, free of cost and or at low cost. That is the first thing. And secondly, skill development in all these all the community belonging to whether they are disadvantaged or being backward. On that ground, Supreme Court stated that legislative bodies and the government should consider that those should be provided with all these facilities. So, and I have to mention this in concluding remarks that there is something called a Sarthi scheme, which was also started by the previous Maharashtra government, which basically try to do the same thing. That instead of giving educational reservation, they basically try to give educational coaching and skill development to persons and young people belonging to Maratha community. So this is actually the way forward, because ultimately, as stated by Supreme Court, the limit of 50% remains there. It is still constitutionally valid, and as all of us know, the public services and the vacancies therein are continuously reducing. The size of state is reducing. The private sector is taking over. And in such circumstances, reservation is not the only solution. The government has to think beyond reservation and in terms of affirmative action if this entire experiment of social justice has to reach its concluding and some fruitful state. So now I will invite first Apurva to speak his opinion. Sorry, it was a bit of a long one, but I tried to just conclude what I was saying.
No, it's okay. So I would first of all apologize to both of you, because my entire argument is going to be that instead of going into the legalities and the rationality and the logic of it, my entire argument is that reservation as a whole is unnecessary and worthless. It does not work. If you, it's like we are entering a room, a dark room, and we see a switch, and there is a tube light, but we keep on trying to turn that switch on, but the tube light just doesn't light, because the button that actually ignites that tube light is at the other end of the room. But we are trying this unnecessary stupid thing by trying to turn on the same button, clicking on it, which is proving no result at all for the last 70 years. It does not work. There are many sides. Okay, first of all, has it given any reasonable or sizable economic advantage to any of the community that actually received reservation? Sizable? No, it has not. Second, the argument which is given for the reservation is that because there is so much of social imbalance and social inequality in India, we need reservation, because it is not about the economics of it, but it's about the societal harmony and societal equality of it. It does not work, because what you are doing is reservation is on the governmental side. It's not on the societal side. No government can actually implement anything in the society. Let's understand this. Governments can only implement stuff in the government. Society, if society wants to evolve and improve, it has to come from within. Most of the times, all around the world, what we do is we expect state to improve society. State and society are two different things. The moment you start saying that the equality of society and equality within society is the state's responsibility, what you actually do is you ignite the elements within our polity and our leadership which wants to control it all. Because once you start giving power to the politicians to actually donate and distribute reservations or any sort of benefit which only that politician, that post can do, that politician will do all that is possible in his might to keep himself or herself in that position. And that starts this vicious circle that we have been witnessing for the last 70 years. The second point is, and I would request if both of you haven't, and also our listeners and viewers, that please do read and listen to watch videos of Thomas Sowell. Thomas Sowell is a 90-year-old
Thomas,
US
sorry.
Thomas Sowell, Sowell, Thomas Sowell.
Okay.
Thomas Sowell is an economist by profession, but he's basically everything. He's an African American economist in US. He's 90 years old. I think he just turned 90 last year or something. Yeah. So he's 90 years old. He has brilliant theories which can prove that no affirmative action can actually benefit any that particular set. So if you are saying that this affirmative action will benefit this caste or this class or this race, it does not work because the affirmative action by itself is itself discriminatory. There is no such thing as positive discrimination. Positive discrimination, just because you add something to it, it doesn't mean that you change the entire picture of it. Positive discrimination is discrimination. The discrimination is against the community that will not get it just because it's in favor. The basis of discrimination is that one community gets it and the other doesn't. What you had with caste system was that one particular community or a group of communities used to get everything and a group of community used to get nothing. If you start giving reservation, the basis of caste system was that humans don't control which society or community you born in. Reservation is introducing the same thing. We still don't control which community or caste or family we born in. And yet, reservation is based on the family and the caste and the community that you born in, which is why reservation is even philosophically, even just by the logic of it, it is not worth it. Firstly, because it doesn't work, and it's not justifiable at all. Just because one community or a group of community, a large number of people in one society do not have anything, that doesn't mean you take it from one community and give it to another community. The only way for a politician to create something for the people who don't have anything is to create more stuff. Creating stuff will distribute stuff. What reservation is doing is you have limited resources and you're trying to distribute it among the set number of people. Instead of creating more seats for education, creating more jobs, politicians start saying that we can create reservations. Look at what's happening in Haryana today. Haryana is given 75 or 80% reservation for the people who are born in Haryana, domiciles. Because Haryana government is failing to create more jobs. So in some way to divert the attention, you can say, I'm creating jobs for Haryanis. But that doesn't help the society because you restrict the job. What will happen? All Haryanis can't do all the jobs. No disrespect to Haryanis, but they can't. Which is why in Gurgaon you have people from all around the country doing various kinds of jobs. If you start giving 75% reservation, you will lose them. You will lose the jobs. Forget about reservations. There will be no jobs to give, to reserve. So it actually creates the result which you don't desire. You desire a result where everybody gets a job and the community which does not have anything gets the job before anybody else. Or they get a job with some guarantee. Here you guarantee that nobody gets the job. So it has, effect which you did not plan for and you did not intend. So that's what those are the grounds on which I oppose any reservation. I do not oppose specifically Maratha reservation because I oppose all the reservations. So I obviously oppose Maratha reservation. And
Right.
just to clarify, uh, if there is a reservation tomorrow for a particular caste or subcaste that I am from, I would reject and oppose that with the same vigor that I am opposing any other reservation. Just to clarify.
Yeah. So, Prasad, first we will start with you, and then I will try to give some of my opinion.
What was the question? I couldn't hear you,
Yeah.
Aditya.
So basically, the entire argument which Apurva is built upon that since now we have sufficiently dealt with the entire Maratha reservation, the nuances of it. So now we are moving to the second part of our discussion, and that is future of reservation. So as has been argued by Apurva, it seems that he is absolutely in opposition to the idea of reservation because, as he said, it is inefficient. Secondly, it is not working, and thirdly, it is really having an adverse effect, and it is basically incentivizing the laziness of our politicians in not creating sufficient job, not creating sufficient educational institution. So this is his argument. What would you say on this?
Just to
Um,
clarify
Yeah.
one small detail. It is not. I don't intend politicians to create more educational institutions.
No, no, no. By
We
that
have
I
many
basically
of those in
I
mind.
agree. I
I
agree.
want, yeah,
Yeah. So basically, he basically wants politicians to frame such policies that will allow people to prosper in private sectors and other sectors as well on their own enterprise and on their own volition. So
absolutely.
considering that, over to you, Prasad. What is your opinion on this?
um, I would like to talk on the future course of reservation, and also I'll link it with the Maratha reservation because the topic is current, and since we are in the news business, I can definitely tell you that what is current that sells. So I will talk on that, and also about future
Sure.
course of reservation and the entire idea of reservation. I have not a lot, but quite disagreement with what Apurva has said, because I initially already mentioned that I am not fundamentally against the idea of reservation, but
Right.
obviously this idea of reservation needs a recheck. As Apurva was saying that even though the community to which he belongs, that community gets reservation, he will oppose. That's also my opinion. But at the same time, I am not. I am just consciously saying this, and I am aware what I am saying, that I still support this fundamental idea of reservation. And just to, as Apurva gave a story about a room which is full of darkness and about a switch which he was talking about, I'll tell you a realistic story what happened when Shahu Maharaj was involved in the entire episode. Uh, am I audible?
Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah.
You are.
Hello.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yes,
yes.
yes.
When Shahu Maharaj declared reserve seats, Advocate Abhyankar, who was from his area, he actually approached Shahu Maharaj and he was saying that the fundamental of this reservation policy is discriminatory, and I think it should be given on the basis of their economic status. So that's what Advocate Abhyankar was saying, and this episode is written in the history. You can also search for it. Shahu Maharaj just gave a gentle smile to that fellow, and he asked him to come to his collection of horses, where he was a very fond of horses, and he had a very nice collection of horses. So he took Shahu Maharaj to his I don't know what you call a place where horses are kept. He actually
Is it
took
stubble by
Advocate.
any chance? Is it stubble?
Probably, stubble, I guess. So he took Advocate Abhingar there, and what he did was he actually got a lot of grass and he kept it in the middle, and he allowed all of his horses to just go and actually have their own lunch. And in that case, those who were of Arabian race, those who were very strong, they actually took the entire share of all the grass, and those who were very less, I should say, of lesser strength, those who had no lesser power compared to all those houses, they actually remained behind. So then he looked at Advocate Abhankar. Advocate Abhankar realized that what point Shahu Maharaj was trying
Right,
to convey,
right.
and this is like, at this moment I am opening this competition for everyone. That's not how a level playing field can be created. those who are oppressed for a long period of time, they should actually get some kind of enable upliftment so that they can come to the level, and then they can compete. So another example I would mention here is that reservation can never be an alternative to merit. Okay, but it should be an enabling factor to merit. Just say, if let's take an example of Vinod Kamble and Sachin Tendulkar. Vinod Kamble comes from a very poor background. Sachin Tendulkar comes from very affluent and very well-to-do background. So if Vinod Kamble is coming from a background, we should give him additional benefits for say. But whenever both will go for a match, century means century. It's not like that if Vinod Kamble is scoring 40 runs, that will be equated to Sachin Tendulkar's 100 runs. Okay, just because he is coming for a poor background. So it can never be an alternative to the merit. But reservation should be, and that was the earlier idea when it was eventually mentioned in the constitution while it was getting drafted. So I'm not fundamentally against this. Secondly, there were very valid points which Apurva was saying, and even people who are from open category, they also always say, and I have heard this argument, that our ancestor did something wrong, why we should suffer, why we should actually face all the consequences, like whatever discrimination you had, those were done by our ancestors, so why we should suffer. This is very logical and valid argument, but at the same time it's a very smart argument. When your ancestors leave some property behind, you go and claim it. But if they had done something wrong, that legacy is also yours. So you cannot just say, Baba, it was wrong and they had done it and we cannot do anything about it. So just
on a one humor note, unfortunately, with the addition of the Kur Kaida, even that entire property business, at least in Maharashtra, was taken away. So on that humorous note, I will give it back to you.
And then coming back to the Maratha community, obviously, the issue which I think should be discussed at this moment is that this community is backward. That's why we are giving reservation. That is not the case, unfortunately. We want reservation. That's why we are trying ourselves that we are backward. That is the case, which I find in Maratha community's entire agitation and entire action which are going on in Maharashtra. Because whatever recommendations which Rane committee gave, whatever recommendations which Gaikwad commission gave, all those commissions were on the basis of very small sample. Let's say 28-30% is the population of Maratha community in Maharashtra. Only 2 lakh people were analyzed, and then on the basis of that report was given. So that's a very, very small sample. Secondly, how can a person, like you have people from Maratha community who are leaders, who claim that we inherited lineage of Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj, we also inherit their in caste terms, his caste, that is Maratha caste. We are Shandno Kuri caste, and you are proud of it. You are actually, making it a poll issue, and then you get more seats, you have more MLAs, you have more representation almost in every field and every dominant area sector. You have people who are not just representing but controlling the entire area. So in that particular sense, I personally feel that it's unfeasible and it's unwarranted demand. And I would again go back and revisit the demands of Maratha Morcha, where they said that the entire reservation system needs a recheck. And that I agree with. But giving it just because we want it, and that becomes a poll issue for one particular party, since they are their voters, and then other party who thinks that, okay, these particular community will not vote for us, so let's just give them reservation and just finish this issue so that other party will not get vote. So you all are getting what I'm trying to convey. Totally. So just for the sake of politics, and those who are going to implement it, as Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar said, that constitution is good or bad on the basis, it depends whether it is good or bad on the basis of how people are going to implement it. Just because people who are implementing are politicians, or they have very ulterior motives, they are doing wrongdoings and they are using it for their own poll purpose, we should not directly attack the very purpose of the act. You should always question and raise valid points against politicians and their motives. But fundamentally, this concept is not wrong, but current status of this reservation policy needs a serious and severe recheck. That's what I want to say.
Right. Yeah, just I will give you a short remark and then we will again go back to Apurva. So, one thing I would just like to mention in passing is, personally, my opinion is reservation policy is here to stay, whether all of us want it or not. So, that is first thing out of the side. That is first. Secondly, in my opinion, not only the Sarthi scheme is good because basically it intends to do that people belonging to Maratha community are actually given educational coaching free of cost or at low cost, and they are also provided with skill development because in today's age, education basically means skill development. Because merely because you have a degree, you cannot be employed. What you really require is skill. That is first thing. Secondly, if you look at the scheme promulgated by the central government, it also gives and goes on the similar criteria of changing the entire dynamics of affirmative action. And as Prasad rightly pointed out, that only those who are strong in, have inherited something very which is grand, those communities tend to have a additional advantage over the other communities. And in order to fill that particular gap, these are the two things which we can do. First is transfer an economic advantage to them so that they can take advantage of it, invest that economic transferred in something which they seem to be helpful to them or beneficial to them. And secondly, instead of giving reservation, work on their skills, ensure that their employability is good, and that is the place where Mudra loan comes into play, because basically it harbors and what can we say, nurtures the feeling and scheme of entrepreneurship in all the communities which have traditionally been categorized as a scheduled caste or backward classes. So the moment you engender the entire feeling of entrepreneurship, that is really the first starting point when the community starts feeling that I am self-reliant, I can do it, I can face the world as an equal. So that is really my point, that these are the things which will eventually make a way, because as all of us know, as I have also stated earlier, the government educational seats, and secondly the government the services, the public services as they call it, or the vacancies, the jobs, government jobs are continuously reducing, and in proportion to our population, it is always gonna remain same. So when it comes to the fact that when it comes to privatization, so today's market condition is such that government is offering, if I'm not mistaken, even less than 5% of the total job market in India. Then in such cases, out of that small chunk of 5%, even if you give reservation to many people, still the entire, the entire motive of reservation doesn't get carried, doesn't get fulfilled. So in this case, what government should try to do, and has been rightly done even in the agricultural case, rather than giving some indirect subsidy to a particular crop to farmers, government has started now directly transferring the benefit, because there was one I think it is Weber University to which Puru had introduced me, and basically that university says one good thing, that instead of expecting that you will subsidize something and the people will buy it, what happens is those who are subsidizing does not have direct interest in what you are getting. So for example, if you are subsidizing medicine, then the government employees are not taking benefit of that medicine. Someone else is. So what happens is that appropriation, the feeling of ownership is not there. The moment you transfer the same amount of subsidy directly hands in the hands of the beneficiary, what he can do tomorrow is he will buy medicine for the market cost. But instead, if he has some other need, genuine need, he will invest accordingly on the basis of his own wisdom. So in this particular case, as in the Mudra case, what government is rightly doing is they are directly giving benefit of loans capital, which is the most, the commodity which is in crunch at all times, without any, what can we say, leverage, without any mortgage or any security. They are providing that loan, and the government is actually acting as a guarantor. That fine, you may fail in your business, we will take care of it, because we are confident that out of around, the estimate was around 4,000 crore or something like that, because around 4 crore people were benefited of this scheme, and everyone was, somewhat in some even have taken 1 lakh amount, 5 lakh, because in that small amount they have really built a business enterprise for themselves. So this is really the way forward, that whichever community you feel is socially, educationally or economically backward, give that direct incentive to them. And in this case, economic incentive is the best incentive you can do, and leave everything else to the private sector. So that is my remark on this entire thing. Now over to you, Apurva, whatever you were trying to say.
Yeah. Okay. So,
Apurva, before you start, can I just
Yeah,
add few points? Then I'll hand it over to you. So
sure.
then I will have
okay, sure.
nothing to.
Yeah,
Okay.
Okay, sure,
no
sure.
problem.
Okay. Which is connected to what Aditya had said. That's why I intervened.
Yeah,
One thing which I would like to mention is that in the globalized world, even if you talk about reservation, it has a very minuscule role to play because more and more other private companies will enter this market. There will be lesser scope for government entities to earn, and that's what my entire thinking is, that government has no business in doing any business. So that
true.
is entire thinking of mine. Secondly, as Aditya had said, that reservation policy is here to stay. Along with the alternatives which he had suggested, I have few alternatives also. And that was the very purpose of what Shahu Maharaj actually came up with. That if entry point you are using reservation, then promotion should be on the merit base. So
Right.
that one point can be used. Secondly, if you are taking reservation for education, then you should not get it while getting jobs. So that the very purpose of education or reservation policy lapses, because if you are getting important, then you are not actually utilizing it, then the purpose dies. And third, like, if a person is getting reservation, then his next generation should not get benefit of reservation. Then again, because what is happening is they are supposed to work for their own community, but they are not working for their own children, so that their children are also needing reservation for their own upliftment. Like you have seen, IS officers are taking reservation benefits, their children are also taking reservation benefits. So I in nowhere they are backward in societal and educational status. So that kind of revision needs to be done, because complete abolition of this policy, I wish, even though we probably are of that opinion slightly on the side of that, but it actually, we should also understand the demography, it's also understand the
Practically.
political framework of this country, and that actually no country will dare, party will dare to take this decision, because it's a very burning poll issue. And
Yeah, it will
if
be
the
a
one party
political
takes that,
suicide. Yeah.
yeah, so there are ways of doing that covertly. Yeah. Over to you, Apurva.
Okay. So, bringing this discussion back to whether it is right or wrong, not whether how to implement it. Firstly, I mean, again, I would apologize first before going into the example that Prasad gave about Shahu Maharaj introducing horses to some Abhyankar guy. Uh, the example itself, I mean, this is, I must admit that for the first time I'm hearing about this example. And so, I don't have any other information other than what Prasad has just told us. So, according to that information, firstly, it comes to my mind that the example itself is quite caste. You are assuming that some castes have more intellectual or physical power than the other caste. And that's an assumption within the example, that you're assuming that some horses, which is a metaphor for caste, will get to the grass first, which is your ultimate goal in life, whatever it might be, because they are of superior race, quote unquote, or superior caste in this case. So that's a very racist and very casteist assumption on the part of Shahu Maharaj. Again, all of my knowledge about this particular example is based on what Prasad has said. I have no previous knowledge of this example. Secondly, and I hate to do this, but you know, we live in a society, not just, I'm not talking about India, in general, humanity. People earn money and status to pass it over to their children and their children's children. Even we say that सात पीढ़ियां खाएंगी, सात पीढ़ियां बसून खाती. That is not just a saying. That used to be the goal of people, and in some ways it is today as well. And why shouldn't it be? Whatever you are earning, it is for your children. Firstly, for yourself, for your children, and your children's children, and so it goes on. So it is wrong to assume that just because you have earned so much that your children's children might also enjoy the fruits of it, it's wrong. But if you try to give the argument, the contrary argument to it, that because your forefathers did something wrong, hence you must pay for it, it's like the it's like the North Korean system, where if grandfather commits any crime, the 5-year-old grandchildren, they also get sent to prison. Prasad is well aware of it than I am, even more aware of it. So we don't want to live in that North Korean socialist system where grandson has to pay for his grandfather's crimes. You know, and again, these are presumably crimes. What is happening is that, and I don't like to give my personal examples in any discussions, but I will give it for this particular discussion. You know, my great great grandfather, he left Nanded. We had, I mean, I have heard this that we had huge land and all in Nanded. He left it, went to Nashik when there was plague, late 19th century. He worked for the people there. He actually picked dead bodies and sent them to crematorium and all. Then my great grandfather, he actually came in Mumbai. He started his own tailoring shop and started living in Mumbai. My grandfather, he actually studied and he had some, what can you say, education, and he became a professor. Then my father became engineer, but I'm not an engineer. I have BMM degree. So and Prasad, who is also a BMM student, who is also a journalist, would agree with me that even today in our society, you know, engineering is here and all other degrees are here.
Social
So
status.
that social status, yeah. So what I'm trying to say is that once you say that you have all this, it does not apply to the entire community. Of
True.
course, there are many people of my community who had created a huge amount of wealth and they carried it even today. But that's a good thing. That wealth itself is creating more job opportunities today. Whether it is actual wealth, which more people have, or whether wealth like my family had, which was intellectual wealth. You know, I must agree and I must confess that just because my family was of a particular caste, we were never deprived of education, which was most necessary. And because we had education, we could move from Nanded to Nashik, Nashik to Mumbai, and we could find jobs. So that was one primary advantage that my caste had, my family had. But that does not mean that that particular advantage should be restricted with reservation.
Yeah.
Reservation restricts opportunities, does not create opportunities. What we need is more opportunity. What Prasad and I, we both agree, and I would assume that even Aditya does, that it's not government's job to be in business. So business, any kind of business, whether it is private sector jobs or whether it is private sector education institutes, government should not be in it. And if tomorrow you are going to say that we must have reservation in private sector, then say bye bye to economy and private sector entirely.
Apurva, before you continue, we would like to take one of our viewers' question, and he is asking: do you think is there an end for reservation policy? Has end day in Indian society and governance? This is a question
No,
by Sunil Jadhav. So thanks for the
no.
question. So yeah,
I
first
don't
of
think it's going to end. I
okay,
will, and people like me will try convincing people that it should be ended. But I am quite aware of the fact that it will not end. But as Prasad rightly said, that there are other coercive measures to take to actually eliminate and not eliminate by law, but to make it so worthless that there is no use of government. Because as even Aditya, you also said that the 5% job, 5% government jobs. So who needs it anymore? But people fight for it like that's the entire job market that is there. So that needs to change.
I think even the fact that the moment you, in fact, two suggestions. First is one example which Prasad gave. Really, I must appreciate that that was one of the finer one, and which basically stated that if you are getting a reservation in education institution, then you should not ask for when you apply for job. Good thing. That is really something which one should consider. Now, then entry level promotion is already under consideration, so hopefully it will happen soon. And secondly, as far as education institution is concerned, I feel that even there, as generations and generations go, there should be a criteria by which, after second or fourth generation or second or third generation, you have used the entire the benefit of reservation, then it should percolate down to the communities which have certain things. That is one. And yeah, lastly, one kind of innovative thing, and which will go actually, which will give sleepless nights to all government employees, is at least the future government employees, is to do away with this entire certainty about job thing. Absolute security of job, because that is one thing which every young person in India is somehow, at least of course, except barring few here and there, but most of them just love this idea of security. That unless and until you do something absolutely, beyond moral ground, as in moral, in legal terms we call it,
Something criminal.
the conduct of moral turpitude. That is the word which is used in employment contracts. So unless we do that, we are just safe. ज्यादा से ज्यादा क्या होगा, ट्रांसफर हो जाएगा, nothing else. So this entire thing which comes up and is born of this government job is first, पगार मिलता रहेगा because government's income will always be there, and secondly, नौकरी जाएगी नहीं. No matter how inefficient you are, you will always have the government job. So the moment these things are taken away, and as far as the third benefit which used to be there and quite lucrative, and that was the benefit of retirement benefit which they get. Pension, yeah. And that is one thing which Atal Bihari Vajpayee, we owe it to his government, that he very smoothly and silently has done away with the entire policy of reserve the pension, fixed pension. Now what the government has done is they have put it in national pension scheme, which is basically a mutual fund. If you get it, you get it. If you don't, it is market risk. So considering that is the good movement, because as we know, even in armed forces, most of our money is spent in paying salaries and pension. So basically all these things, 1 out of 3 we have removed one. I hope on the point of job security and your salary, government makes some move. And if that is made, then people will also realize that private sector is ultimately the employer, and we should start focusing on skill development. Yeah, after
just one very small point. I realized during this discussion I had this point, but I forgot to mention it. What we are doing is we are speaking for and we are advocating equality of opportunities, but then we are judging it with equality of outcome. That is classic case of left's policy towards marginalized being entire theory around the marginalized will revolt against those who haves and have nots. What is happening is today you have equal opportunity. Let me be very clear. You have equal opportunity to get jobs and education. What you don't have and you cannot have is equality in the outcome. You cannot ensure outcome will be equal in any society just because you are giving opportunities. So once you are saying that we are giving so much opportunity, but the outcome is still not there. And because the outcome is still not there, we'll keep giving more and more and more and more, so that there is no equality in outcome. And that cannot be achieved. No society till date has ever achieved equality in outcome. But we are actually okay. Yeah.
Just one question which is coming from our viewers. What is your take on, I think it is physically handicapped reservation and ex-serviceman quota? This is coming from Pratik Barge, sorry. Yeah. Barge, yeah. So now Prasad, what do you think about physically handicapped and ex-serviceman?
And he had some point
on previous discussion also. Yeah. First, this physically handicapped and ex-serviceman quota. What do you think about that reservation? Is it required?
No, if Apurva is answering, then that's fine. No, I am, as I said, I am not fundamentally against this principle of reservation. As far as PAs are...
Only 20 seconds are remaining here. I think we have exceeded that 1 hour limit. So we will have to conclude today here very fast. I personally feel that physically handicap reservation should be there. As far as ex-servicemen
There.
is considered,
I
it is
also
a bit
feel.
of a gray area. So on this note, I would
Yes.
say discussion is divine, and that is what we have really felt today. And we are very